Hey guys, welcome back to Xenia Bridge. Originally, last week we had announced that Mama Atheist was going to be coming on this week. Unfortunately, she's got some personal stuff that's going on, so she ended up having to reschedule with us, and we're going to be getting you guys a new date as soon as we have one. But thankfully, Suris was free and agreed to come on to talk about a different topic than we originally had planned, mostly because the topic, like, I read a news article and got really freaking mad and was like, Jen, if we're going to be changing the topic, we're talking about this. So, welcome everybody. I see that I don't have to remind anybody that the channel just got monetized because Nervardia decided to give me a $2 super chat with first. Thank you so much. And Carbuckle, damn, so close to first again. So thank you guys so much for the $5 and $2 super chats respectively. I really appreciate your guys' support for the channel. You're almost 3/4 of the way to the $100 super chat goal that the server decided to impose upon itself for the Platonism streams. So thank you guys again. Like, you guys have been ridiculously freaking generous.
I'm not doing that show with you.
It's a solo show. It's me getting drunk and raging.
Because no.
Platonism is dumb. That is the TLDR. Get your alcohol and go the fuck home.
I will sit in that bed and just drink and quietly go to sleep if you want this to be a kosher. Just
where is the real sir? Hold on. Right here. He's right here. The real Cyrus is right here, Callan. Go home. Go home.
Real Cyrus.
Sam, just around, I have to actually go check on YouTube Studio, but I want to say it's between like $25 and $30 is left on it. You guys are pretty close to 70.
You know what, Callan? This is what we do to people like you. That's what we do. We just and then.
All right, yeah. So we need a COVID vaccine so that I can get on a plane and go have a Nerf war with Cyrus.
That would be so much fun.
That's the question. Hmm? Why would you need to go on a plane? I drove to Texas.
No. I'm like, if I have
driven across the country 3 times in my life. I'm never doing it again.
I've done it. I've done that. If I have to spend longer than an hour in a car now, I get irritated.
Oh, fine. Perfect. Well, you just come over here and we do a stream then. You're already in the right mindset.
Exactly. But that's why I get on a plane, because it would take me 4.5 hours to drive out by you. It takes me only an hour to fly. And then I could sit on the plane with my headphones and quietly judge people who have no fucking home training and do dumb shit like pick their nose and take their fucking shoes off and fucking slobber on their fucking meals and shit. I enjoy doing this.
I believe that's euros. A €5 super chat. On a scale of 1 to bread, how leftist will this stream be? Well, there's 2 bread tubers in the chat.
I don't know if I would be considered bread tube.
You're not commie.
Well,
No.
So, well, I'm not commie either.
You're socialist, though. You're pretty damn close.
But I'm, according to political compass tests, I'm very fucking close.
Okay, so you have 3 bread tubers sitting here because you and I have gotten like nearly the same result on that one.
Oh, on the when I've posted them publicly on Twitter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've gotten nearly the same one. So
here's the thing about BreadTube, and I've learned this over the years. BreadTube is not a thing you claim to be; it's a thing that your audience determines you are. So if your audience determines you are, then you are. If not, then yeah.
Fuck.
I've gotten the determination a handful of times in comments, so I'm just like, yeah, I guess. Okay. Sure thing.
Oh, Mikkel. Oh, look at that. Look at that comment.
So we have Mikhail Koning. It's a 3-part comment. I can't stay around for long because tomorrow the government is going to announce whatever guidelines I'm going to have to follow at my job, which are of course effective immediately, despite requiring lots of preparation to be able to properly implement all, because some people can't be arsed to properly social distance and wear a friggin' mask, or follow any other guidelines to prevent the spread of a deadly disease. Yay, fun. That was most of what we ranted about in the last episode. Like, we were trying to talk about justice, and we ended up mostly talking about COVID. We got a $2 super chat from John the Apostate, because I'm broke. Thank you.
We're broke, too. For the audience, do I sound better than I did last stream, because last stream my mic was all fucked up. Do I sound at least a little bit better and not so hollow? Because they fucked with the audio settings and shit too with stream apps.
So
when your voice like trails down, like when you go from presenter voice to just like natural voice for a little bit, it just sounds like I'm back home.
Why?
I don't know. It's the same dialect that everybody in Montclair had, which is weird because you didn't live in Montclair.
No, Montclair. Wait, Jersey, fuck off, yo.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm like, that sounds very familiar.
Jen's a little fucked up today. You're gonna fucking tell me I sound like I'm from Jersey?
No, not Jersey.
Okay.
No, Montclair is in Florida.
Jen's like, I don't know if that's better.
I feel like that's worse.
Do you even like me? Like, what the fuck? Like, do you actually like me, Cyrus? What the fuck?
All right, so at some point we're going to...
Jen is Jersey confirmed.
Fuck yeah.
So we're going to, like, at the risk of being completely taken over by the chat, we're going to have to find the topic at some point. So part of the reason that we asked Cyrus on specifically was because Cyrus and Jen both, and myself, to be honest, though most of my political stuff, at least on this channel, has been concentrated on trans issues. We all have a tendency to talk a great deal about, like, racial bias and racism in this country, which, you know, can we all just get an agreement from the chat really quick? America has a racism problem. Like, this is an unambiguous thing. I don't understand why it's a debate, but like for the purposes of this discussion, it is absolutely a problem. John the Apostate's $10 super chat. I would have said Boston.
It's $10. Eat my fucking asshole. Fuck off. No.
That's even worse now. I feel like that was on purpose.
So the reason that I bring this up is because apparently this administration doesn't understand something that it seems like my chat certainly does. Oh yeah, Cyrus is in the chat. So G, if you don't agree that that America has a racism problem, H, if you do. $5 super chat from Fanorola G. God, you guys are being really generous tonight. I have some money from your local shy trans heathen. All the love. Thank you so much.
That is a money transfer from one of your trends. Although apparently, according to my latest video, Lori Alexander thinks that trans people are trying to be God and fight deities.
Yo. Like, I was like, I had to like watch that twice. Because I was drinking.
When she said that, I'm just like, all right.
I
we're animating ContraPoints versus God now.
I had to watch that twice because I was drinking, so I wasn't sure if I was drunk.
So that is the most H I think I have ever seen my chat. So we can safely call it very H.
The chat is very H now. You've done it. It's a variation on my stream, but it's fine.
Sam Chaos, £20 super chat. This is my first super chat, and it's to a deserving place. F-bomb counter 3.
They just want to hear you bitch about Platonism while I quietly get drunk in bed.
Okay, pounds are worth more than dollars, so that definitely pushed us over. So I guess
your suffering is their enjoyment. Do it.
Yep, I will suffer for your pleasure next Saturday.
$100, I'll do it with no pants.
Not like anybody can tell. YouTubers only exist from the waist up.
Not if I'm laying back there.
Okay, so what you're saying is this stream's occurring on OnlyFans now. Wow.
No, she said no pants. That didn't say she wouldn't wear shorts.
For those of you who want to follow along at home, I'm going to post the link to this executive order directly from the whitehouse.gov website, because the problem is there's a lot of fluff in this. Like a lot of fluff.
I didn't get through the fucking fluff.
Yeah, so I'm going to...
Not real. I wear pants when my son is awake. And that's like it.
So, because there's a lot of fluff, question, do you guys want to try to skip through the fluff? Because the problem is the under the section that says Purchase, we have a bunch of random stuff that's kind of just talking about the Civil War for reasons I don't fully understand. It's not until you get down to where is it here that you start to, no, it's actually a little bit up. that you actually start to see this destructive ideology. So this is where you actually start to get to the meat of what he has a problem with and what he's trying to supposedly combat with this executive order. So do you guys want to?
I was just like, the fuck? Why are we talking about this shit?
What I find funny is that in the beginning, so we can glance over the fluff real quick, and just like do a TLDR for the fluff. The fluff begins by going, Civil War happened, but our American values say that these truths are self-evident.
Mhm.
Also, Martin Luther King had a dream, and that is the fluff.
Oh,
that is a $100
crap.
super
That is
chat.
a $100 super chat. Jen, I guess you now have to be a part of that stream.
Congratulations.
I mean, I'm not gonna say nothing. I'm just gonna lay back there and watch TV and get drunk. That's all I'm gonna do.
John the Apostate says, I'm gay. I just like to mess with people. $100 super chat. Jen, you are now stuck on the Platonism stream.
Hey, for the gays. I'll do it for the gays. I'll do it for my fellow.
I have a question though. At that point,
So,
is that a double entendre? If you're taking your pants off, but you're doing it for the gays, which way are we spelling gays?
I'm queer though, so I'm usually taking my pants off.
So both.
Yeah, so both.
Okay, cool.
Taking my pants off for the gays.
10 out of 10. It's fine.
That is, thank you again so much, John. Like, that is beyond generous. I am incredibly grateful. Like, that means a lot to me.
Fuck, now I gotta shave.
I have. No, you just use a 480p camera and nobody can tell.
I'll get my little Galaxy S3. That out.
I will say this. So, John, I'm not trying to comment on anything specifically, but I've noticed a thing, and that is that people with My Little Pony profile pictures, so people who I assume are part of the Brony community, are generally really fucking generous.
Yeah.
And I don't, I think it might also, like, that's a thing that I've noticed, like, also with the furry community, is generally they're also really generous.
Well, both the Brony and the furry community have a lot of like college age, middle class men in them, particularly. I've noticed. But I actually used to help run a Brony convention up here. My husband was one of the founders of Everfree Northwest.
Nice.
So like the Brony community is incredibly welcoming. There are some toxic aspects to parts of it, but
every
overall,
community that grows to a sufficient size gains toxicity. It's just
that's what I'm trying to say. Is there are some toxic aspects to it, and its origins are kind of like meh. But like the community that I knew up here in the Pacific Northwest, at least, was incredible.
Yeah,
we
it's just
don't have them here. We don't have each
but
out like
I'm
prominent here.
But Atlanta does. Atlanta has pretty.
I need to move.
Didn't Atlanta have one of the bigger Brony conventions? Like you guys had one of the ones that survived for a really long time.
Fucking move, like
I haven't actually gone to any, but I have gone to anime conventions in general, and you see a lot of the crossover when you do that.
But this is why I need a vaccine so I can move and be around fucking normal people and not the piece of shit conservatives that I live around.
Oh, there's plenty of. Dude, I have not seen a single Biden thing anywhere here. It's all Trump or Majorly Green, who's freaking QAnon shit. So yeah, no, let's not going to get much better here. And we just lost Jen.
Oh, we lost Jen. Devices not connected. I have no idea. Well, hopefully Jen will come back. As far as did I ever go to Everfree Northwest? Yeah, I did. Like I said, my hubby actually was one of the founders. I used to help out a little bit, and I actually also helped out with fundraising during the off season, though some of that got kind of messy. Hopefully Jen comes back soon.
Yeah, I wonder why it broke. That's weird.
Something done broke.
I hope it wasn't the fact that I just like pointed out that George is also a conservative hellhole. And Jen was just like, "No, I'm done.
Done.
No, I didn't want any of it at all. It's bad. It's all
so
bad."
Do you want to, while we're waiting for a wonderful co-host to come back, do you want to kind of go through some more of the fluff a little bit?
Yeah.
This is where we get to this is the actual purpose. So we have a bunch of like 3 paragraphs of, America the Beautiful. And then we get to today, however, many people are pushing a different vision of America that is grounded in hierarchies based on collective social and political identities rather than in the inherent and equal dignity of every person as an individual.
So I'm just going to go ahead and say this right now. I love the conservative legislation in America saying shit about hierarchies. I love it. Screams in, I'm not an anarchist, but screams in Kropotkin.
Pretty much.
In it.
Pretty much. Let's see. So this ideology is rooted in the pernicious and false belief that America is an irredeemably racist and sexist country, that some people, simply on account of their race or sex, are oppressors, and that racial and sexual identities are more important than our common status as human beings and Americans. So what's interesting to hear is we've got not all men and not all white people in the same sentence. Like, that is some talent. It's a really fucking long sentence, but it's there.
Should we also dig into the fact, so this is basically like this is his attempt to get rid of inclusivity training and by further expression stuff like critical race theory from anywhere, right?
It specifically targets, from what I understand from having read the legislation, that we have paragraphs before you actually get to it. This is where it starts. Anyway,
yeah, but what I was going to say though is that it's very strange to me that it begins in this, even in the fluff, it begins by trying to say that these are the other. It begins by otherizing. These are the other. The other does not believe that America is redeemable. We are the true Americans, and therefore we know that we are good and fine. It doesn't argue that they're redeemable because there's not an admission of guilt. But it's very weird to me because if you talk to anybody who's actually engaged in this conversation and engaged in the politics of it, the whole reason they're engaged in it is because they do believe that America is in some form redeemable and they're trying to fight for that kind of redemption. So, like, even in the fluff, there's fucking wrong shit.
By the way, I just got a DM from Jen. Jen says that everything just kind of shit itself and she's working on coming back. So she's trying to get back in. Oh, okay. There she is. Sweet.
Hello, Jen.
I just announced the DM you sent me.
Fucking Cirrus and Ocean fucking come on shit, and my shit fucking breaks, and this never fucking happens unless it's the fucking two of you. It never fucking happens.
Hey,
this is what you get for braiding Trek gremlins.
It ain't me. They're fucking quiet.
I caught the bug from Ocean. I am sorry.
Fucking done with this shit with y'all.
Well, you want to be done with it, but you're still here.
I'm still fucking here.
I am sorry, Jen, that your face is now getting covered up by the super chats.
Your face is now an anime PFP.
I'm fine with that.
Aya Brenly, $5 super chat. Western rural PA here, which is deep Drumpf country. I'm saying Drumpf because reasons. But I am heartened how I have seen at least 1 to 4 Biden to Trump signs, which is way better than 2016. Thank you so much for the super chat. And I'm sorry that you're stuck out in Drumpf country, but at least it sounds like progress is being made. People can admit they're wrong. That's positive.
I'm here with you, sweetheart. I fucking know it. I'm here with you. Trust.
Also, we've got an F-bomb counter from Sam Chaos that is going, so I'll pop that up periodically.
Yo, like,
is this how many times Sam is having to say the F-bomb, or how many times?
No, okay. This is a running joke on the show. There was one time where Jen, we swore over like dropped over 50 F-bombs, and so I was like, if only we knew. 100. Okay, we had one night that hit 200, but that was when we had counters. But the originating was, it was over 50 F-bombs, and like somebody joked that it must be at least 1 a minute. And so like a couple of people wrote scripts where they just like, they press a set of keys and they track how often Jen uses the F-bomb, and they've started doing it on her channel too.
They track how many times my channel will never be monetized.
Pretty much. I mean, to be fair, this stream isn't going to be monetized. We're talking about politics. It's going to get freaking hit. Like every single, like the last one we did get to pretty much instantly. So y'all, your super chats are helping out.
Surprisingly, I've managed to dodge demonetization on so many episodes lately. It's been great to be able to afford food.
Isn't that lovely? Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah, Patreon is the lifeblood of my channel for the most part. Like, this is the first time we've got a significant amount of super chats, and I am so grateful for you guys. Like, you guys are freaking amazing. YouTube does not pay the bills just from ad revenue. Like, y'all, if you skip those ads, we don't get paid at all. Even if you don't, it's pennies.
Actually, skipping ads, you still get paid the same amount.
Really?
If they have to watch at least 30 seconds of it, I thought.
Not from what I understand. It's only when you're using an ad blocker that it creates issue.
I'm less than 300 hours from monetization. Hint, hint, everyone.
Yeah, go watch some of Jen's playlists. Like, link to the wind down is in the description. She makes some really good content, and she's also shifted to politics recently. So if y'all want like a deeper dive into some of the stuff we're talking about tonight, Jen's doing more stuff on her channel along those lines, and has done some really good episodes recently.
Thank you.
Yeah, just for
sorry. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say for perspective on YouTube, a channel of, I don't know how much Leakai makes off of YouTube alone, but a channel of my size at like 32,000 on YouTube alone only makes like a few $100s. Mm-hmm. So just for perspective, even at my size, YouTube doesn't pay the bills. So.
Yeah, with if you counted super chats as well, I hit $90 today, and my channel's been monetized for about a month.
Hold on, Womcat.
And I've got about 1,100 subs.
Womcat, are you using your phone or are you using a computer?
If you swear in your super chats, it won't let you sometimes.
But if you have like anything drawing over, like a red light filter, anything that is drawing over the screen, it also won't let you send it.
Yeah.
So that could be it.
So coming back to the topic, here's where I wanted to go over the fluff a little bit, because the justifications, like we went over the irony of the hierarchies thing, but right here, this destructive ideology is grounded in misrepresentations of our country's history and its role in the world. Although presented as new and revolutionary, they resurrected the discredited notions of the 19th century apologists for slavery, who, like President Lincoln's rival Stephen A. Douglas, maintained that our government was made on the white basis by white men for the benefit of white men.
But how was that discredited? That's just a fact of how America was founded.
That's literally how America was
we had
founded.
Slaves. If America was founded without slaves, and if slavery did not factor into one of the reasons we engaged in the Revolutionary War, because fun history bit, one of the reasons, though a more minor reason, that we engaged in the Revolutionary War to begin with was because there were talks at the time of the Crown banning slavery.
Because that was right around the time that England, the UK, and other parts of Europe were starting to actually ban the practice of slavery.
And the United States wanted to keep their slaves. And if you think that George Washington was a perfect little good boy who didn't want to keep his slaves, the dude literally had a law in Pennsylvania that said that a slave would be freed if they stayed in the soil of Pennsylvania for 6 months. And George Washington rotated his slaves from Pennsylvania down to a vacation home every 5 months to guarantee that he could keep his slaves for as long as possible. He reset their timers.
Yep.
Carpathian of Lilum just manifested a $2 super chat for us. Thank you so much. Another quick question from the chat I wanted to answer. Womcat, not Womcat, what was it? It was right below, Aya. I have YouTube Red, so I think you get a portion of that or something. We don't get a portion, we just get a flat payment for people with YouTube Red.
Guys,
so if you click on a video and play it, as somebody with YouTube Red, it actually does a payment for us. So that actually is huge for us. Thank you. Womcat, $5 Canadian super chat. Let's see if it works this time. Huzzah. Thank you so much, Womcat.
Sorry, guys. Kid has fall break, so he's still up. So y'all do the thing. Yeah.
we do the thing.
I'm going to send him to you, sirs.
Okay. We're just going to play Sonic the Hedgehog games together. What else do you think is going to happen?
At White House, crap, they're stating facts, quick, bring forth the fluff. Pretty much, like, this person says our founding documents rejected these racialized views of America, which were soundly defeated on the blood-stained battlefields of the Civil War. Our founding documents did not happen during the Civil War. The Civil War happened a century later.
Yeah.
This is the product of the shitty American educational system, to be honest. This is like you didn't take a history course.
This is revisionist history. You did take a history course, but you took a history course in Southern America in the public system, and it gave you a real fucked up view. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and do a stereotype real quick, if it's okay for me to just do a quick stereotype. This is the type of person that looks at this and doesn't see a problem. I was born in red, white, and blue America, and I think America is the greatest. The meter is a stupid idea, and I don't have a problem with black people. I just don't want my daughter dating one. And if you've heard that from anyone...
I mean, I heard it with a Northern Washington accent, but yes. Yes, Washington is a thing.
This explains why you guys say Spokane so weird.
Spokane?
There's an E at the end of it.
It's why? Spokane. Because actually it's a Native American tribal name. So Americans didn't know how to spell it in the first place.
You say that, but if Americans didn't know how to spell, how come we made English?
What? Stairs in half Brit. Okay. Well, you see, you guys actually didn't invent the language anyway.
You guys think a biscuit's a cookie. What the fuck's wrong with you?
Washington, yes.
What the fuck?
Sorry, Jen. We were looking at this paragraph and commenting on the revisionist history required to get one to the conclusions of this paragraph. So I decided.
Let me go ahead and cause
a day for revisionist history, isn't it, everyone? This
sentence right here that I have highlighted. Go ahead and read that to yourself, Jen, and we'll just watch your face fall.
And then I can do what I did earlier and make the chat suffer twice.
Hold on.
Press F to pay respects for Jen's brain in the chat, please.
All right, so, all right. Let me.
Now there weren't nothing wrong in that there paragraph, but right. you need to understand, America's not racist. The meter is stupid. The foot is the way to go. And if my daughter brings a black man home, I'm putting my foot right up his ass.
Like, I literally just called some motherfucker a racist piece of shit on Twitter tonight for trying to say that we need to celebrate Columbus discovering the Americas. And
he didn't discover America. There were already natives here.
But no, his argument was that he discovered it to tell the rest of the world. So that's what we need to celebrate, is the journey in that. And the
rest of the world.
He discovered that he could kidnap child slaves very effectively from the islands off the coast of South America.
Right now. All right, our founding documents rejected these radicalized views of America. There is
a century between the founding documents and the Civil War.
I wonder if the revisionist history professor that wrote this.
Wait. Fuck me. Is this literally saying that the original documents of our country were not based on white supremacy? Like, is this what this is actually fucking telling me? A document,
literally, word for word,
that considered black people 2/3 of a person.
Well, no. The document didn't consider them even that yet.
Not even that.
And so you got to remember, even if you look at this through like a revisionist history lens, it's still awkward to look at this and go, wait, hold on. What did we call the South during the Civil War? Okay, why did we call them the Confederates? Oh, because of the Articles of Confederation. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. That wasn't written at the time of our country's founding, was it? That's weird.
Like, y'all, okay, I don't fucking get it, y'all. Like, all right. So Donald Trump grew up on the rich side of Queens, and let me tell you, this motherfucker had just access to the best fucking private schools imaginable. And how the fuck did my broke public school ass understand this better than he does? Like,
well, you see, It's because you grow up in the poor area, and by growing up in the poor area, you got to experience the end result of people pretending this fantasy was true.
But he goes on, right, about he wants textualist judges. Like he says this. This is why he said this is why he nominated Amy Coney Barrett, because she's a textualist. What? But
being a textualist is really weird when you have to assume the original founding fathers' motives and meanings and taking them into account.
But then they were arguing originalism. Marsha Blackburn was arguing originalism today.
I mean, if you argue originalism, then you and I, Jen, no longer have the right to vote. In fact, I never would have gotten the right to vote.
I have an episode on originalism that says, when is it time for old white men to shut the fuck up? Like, I literally have an episode on this with a constitutional law attorney. They're fucking promoting originalism, but then he's turning around and being like, oh, it wasn't founded on this. 3/5, thank you. Oh, it wasn't founded on this.
Hi, Kevin.
Bitch, what the fuck are you reading? Mein Kampf, motherfucker? Like, what the fuck are you going by?
This is the type of person, the person who doesn't read that there was racism embedded originally into the Constitution is the type of person who is in the unique position of being able to divorce a document from the time the document was written. But if you're going to argue originalism, then you're literally only stuck within the context of the time frame the document was written. Correct?
Exactly. So you're stuck in the time frame of when black people weren't counted as people.
And neither were we, for the record.
I mean, you guys were property.
We were less than property. We were hunting fodder. Stairs and Haida. We got a $10 super chat from Ikeda Hakubi. Thank you all, plus Ocean. In the past week, I have gone from an angry anti-theist to anti-harm / superstition. Plenty of work still to do, but you have pointed me to some great resources. Thanks again. Thank you so much. And I think if you were the person who had tagged me on Twitter to tell me about your story, thank you so much for doing that as well. Like, that's kind of the whole reason that Jen and I do these shows, actually, is to promote allyship and to show people, hey, it's kind of better to work together than to just be dicks at each other.
It's like we don't accomplish anything. We can have disagreements.
No, let's not get Ocean in here, please. Because like my patience and my ability to attempt to think like these stupid motherfuckers went with the length of my hair, I'm convinced that I cut that all off in my bathroom the other night. So I don't need to be that broken. I'm reading the next paragraph. Training materials.
I thought you said training wheels for a second, and not gonna lie,
I was not describing what the president does in the Rose Garden on some time off.
That was where I was going.
So we have some examples of the president and or whoever like actually made his words sound like something that, you know, came out of a third grade classroom.
Well, he definitely
First off, it's not in a crayon.
Training materials from Argo National Laboratories, a federal entity, stated that racism is interwoven into every fabric of America and described statements like colorblindness and the meritocracy as actions of bias. Like you're supposed to be outraged by this.
The thing about a meritocracy is there's a couple of problems with it.
Who decides what merit is?
Yeah.
Well, you have the foundational problem of who decides what merit is. You have another issue where if you have a pure meritocracy, like an Ayn Rand situation, which is a pure meritocracy, anybody who was born with a disability of any kind, something they had no control over, is de facto a second-class citizen within a full, perfect meritocracy. And if you think that's okay, then fine. You have accepted that someday you and I are going to be in a parking lot. And when we are in that parking lot, you will exit a second-class citizen. But details on that are unsure of at the moment.
In Minecraft.
In World of Warcraft on a PvP server.
Oh, yeah. Okay. We can do that.
So I'm going to read this one out, and then I'm going to take a rant for a half a second. Because, like, I am proof that this is not in any way an accurate statement. Like, y'all didn't need living proof, but I'm sitting here anyway. A Smithsonian Institution museum graphic recently claimed that concepts like objective, rational, linear thinking, hard work being the key to success, the nuclear family, and belief in a single God are not values that unite Americans of all races, but instead are aspects of and assumptions of whiteness. The museum also states that facing your whiteness is hard and may result in feelings of guilt, sadness, confusion, defensiveness, or fear. Hi, I'm a Native American polytheist. I don't believe in a single God, and I know from having worked my ass off my entire life that hard work is not necessarily the key to success. Also, objective, rational, linear thinking. Have you studied psychology? Because objectivity doesn't exist. It just doesn't. We can try to simulate it using systems, but it does not exist.
Does somebody have a Xanax? Please.
So the fact that they have a problem with like any sort of statement that these things are aspects and assumptions of whiteness rather than uniformity tells me that the Trump administration doesn't consider me and people like me to be Americans.
This is bootstrap shit.
This is the story of a world that had it all fucking backwards.
Now I have that story of a girl song in my head.
I mean, and yeah, this statement is actually really true. Look at all the not all white people in the very first sentence of this fluff piece that we've been reading. By the way, this is supposed to be an executive order. Like, this is literally supposed to be the tiny little paragraph preamble that you normally see.
This isn't an executive order. This is propaganda.
This is the propaganda portion of a so-called executive order. We're still reading the actual. I'm going to highlight here. We are still reading the actual WhiteHouse.gov release on this.
I need a fucking Xanax. I need a Xanax. Yeah.
It won't help.
No, Xanax puts me to sleep. It absolutely will. I could just go to bed and feel I just really like this isn't happening.
All right, so now we're getting to, so all of this is contrary to the fundamental premises underpinning our republic that all individuals are created equal and should be allowed an equal opportunity under the law to pursue happiness and prosper based on individual merit.
Oh my God, where the fuck was this when you were taking fucking Polish immigrants and taking their fucking visas and their fucking passports and not paying them and then threatening to send them back home? Were they equal then? Was the 98-year-old lady that had a rent-controlled apartment in the fucking plaza that you wanted to sell, was she fucking equal when you were cutting the fucking heat off? Was she equal then? Matter of fact, are your kids equal, Donald? Are your children equal? Or does Tiffany get less because you can't stand her mother? But who's equal here?
Were we equal in 1979 when we were jailed and murdered in the streets for speaking our languages and practicing our religions? Were we equal then? Were we equal in the 1940s and 50s when we were still being ripped out of the hands of our parents and shoved into residential schools to quote unquote kill the Indian and save the man? Were we equal then? Sir, how equal do you feel?
Hold on. Was I equal when he argued that the LGBTQIA community shouldn't be included under the Civil Rights Act? Was I equal then?
I love how there are people who tried to argue against that, and yet, strangely enough, and this is probably one of the best examples of like the efficacy of something like the Lincoln Project. Funnily enough, it was actually the conservatives that argued in favor of including LGBTQ people in the act. When you look at the actual wording for what went down with the justices, they looked at it and said, "Yeah, no, the designations here." Are about things that one is born with and or cannot control, and that means
they're
that
actual textualists on the bench now.
And when you have an actual textualist, you can get situations like that where you know that Twitter page accidentally left wing. That's what you get with that, and it's hilarious.
Right? Were we equal pre-Stonewall? No, no.
So here we've got a ramble here that like, oh, well, these kinds of courses are being used in the government. Here's the federal government is and must always be committed to the fair and equal treatment of all individuals before the law. But training like that discussed above perpetuates racial stereotypes and division and can use subtle coercive pressure to ensure conformity of viewpoint. Such ideas may be fashionable in the academy, but they have no place in programs and activities supported by federal taxpayer dollars. Research also suggests that blame-focused diversity training reinforces biases and decreases opportunities for minorities.
Does research actually show that? Secondly, did you notice that there were actually two things said in that statement?
Mm-hmm.
The first one was that academies should not be funded publicly.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that jumped out at me. Okay.
I mean, there's actually three things here. First,
Well,
the left the real racist.
I have a question. Racial bias training on the job, wouldn't that mean that a person of color was already on the job? Because you're being taught how to deal with your coworkers.
Yeah.
Or you got in trouble because you didn't know how to deal with your coworkers. Because, like, in every job I've ever worked, you only got sent to that shit if you fucked up.
Well, no, like in the military, they actually have EO training.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you didn't get in trouble, they still have a monthly EO training where it's like, don't be a racist, don't be a rapist. Women are people too. Like they actually have these once a month.
Well, and there goes our monetization.
Sorry.
So, our federal civil system is based on merit principles. These principles call for all employees to receive fair and equitable treatment in all aspects of personnel management without regard to race or sex, and with notice that they use sex here and not gender.
Not gender.
And with proper regard for their constitutional rights. Instructing federal employees that treating individuals on the basis of individual merit is racist or sexist directly undermines our merit system principles and impairs the efficacy of federal service.
What? Like, how does telling someone this is how not to be a racist?
You see, it is actually the social justice warriors who are the real racists.
Look, Mr. Silverman, okay?
That's what this sounds like to me.
Enough of that shit out of you, Mr. Silverman, okay?
Look, I was a meme once.
But here's the thing. We're about to get into the legislation, by the way. Like, if we scroll down a tiny bit and we start to actually get definitions, and this is where I know Jen's going to have a fucking field day. Such activities also promote division and inefficiency when carried out by federal contractors. The federal government has long prohibited federal contractors from engaging in race or sex discrimination and required contractors to take affirmative action to ensure that such discrimination does not occur.
Do they think this happened?
No, let me finish, Jen. It gets worse. It gets worse. The participation of contractors' employees in training that promotes race or sex stereotyping or scapegoating similarly undermines efficiency in federal contracting. Such requirements promote divisiveness in the workplace and distract from the pursuit of excellence and collaborative achievements in public administration. So they've gone from saying racial diversity training teaches lies about history to racial diversity training is the real racism.
So I got a question. No, Noodles, you can't ask your question right now. What did racial diversity training cause those Blackwater contractors to rape and kill people in Iraq? Is that what caused it?
Did it also cause them to like actually get extradited and then not charged anything when they got back?
Did that training, is that what caused the rape of female contractors in Afghanistan that were under a government contract for Halliburton?
10 out of 10, actually. That's exactly what happened.
Is that why? It was just discrimination. Is that why?
Is that why there are still thousands of missing Native American women?
No, but is that
why
when I literally watched men who were in infantry units go and apply for Dynacorp, who is a government contractor, they literally would not hire black men. It was nothing but teams of white men. Is that why? Because of racial diversity training? Is that it?
Can I answer like Trump?
Please.
I don't know anything about that. It probably somebody in my administration might. I don't know anything about that. Next question.
Therefore,
you already asked a question. Next question.
Therefore, it shall be the policy of the United States to not promote race or sex stereotyping. Again, continuing with the sex and not gender here. Read between the lines and actually what's in them. Stereotyping or scapegoating in the federal workforce or in the uniformed services, and not allow grant funds to be used for these purposes. In addition, federal contractors will not be permitted to inculcate such views in their employees. They are now currently limiting the rights of corporations to actually educate their employees against being racist.
But now I have a question. Say that you get one of these military contractors, right? Now it could be Dynacore, it could be, I forgot the name of the people that do the pharmacy stuff. It could be any one of these, right? If somebody is found to be racist or sexist or gender bias and gender discriminatory, can they turn around and say that they can't be fired because they were never given training nor guidance on what is acceptable behavior in the office, in the workplace? Can they contest that firing if they are fired due to racism? Because they were never given guidance and they were never given any kind of heads up or any kind of protocol to it. Can they not contest that?
There's no protection whatsoever against this in this legislation.
Anyone?
There's no provision in this legislation whatsoever. And you can't even call it a legislation. This is an executive order.
I mean, does anyone? Because y'all realize this is going to be wrongful termination suits now, right?
Jen, this is a gigantic paragraph defining things. It looks great on the surface, doesn't it? But do you want to go ahead and try to parse through that a little bit and why maybe the average might not understand exactly what's being said here? Because we're talking to, our audience, one would hope, is at least a little more informed than average. We try to do a really good job of that. But your average is going to read this and read something very different. So do you want to explain, with the average in mind, what's going on with this particular set of definitions? Because, of course, definitions is essential. Definitions are the most essential component to any legislation, right?
This is some low-key Nazi propaganda shit off the bat. Divisive concepts means the concepts that one. Now, notice the wording here. They're saying that if you point out that anybody is different, you're dividing people. One race or sex is inherently superior to another race or sex. Okay. The United States is fundamentally racist or sexist. Wow. An individual by virtue, okay, you know what, fuck it, we're going to do. One race is inherently superior or to another race or sex. I don't see gender in there, but okay. And yes, that's a, okay, we're just going to pretend. The United States is fundamentally racist or sexist. An individual by virtue of his or her, notice that shit, race or sex is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously. An individual should be discriminated against or receive adverse treatments solely or partly because of his or her race or sex. Members of one race
Don't we already have legislation that protects about that? Aren't there several of that? Why does this, unless they're trying to mask it as meaning something else?
Oh, wait, I will get there. Because they are. Okay. Members of one race or sex cannot and should not attempt to treat others without respect to race or sex. An individual's moral character is necessarily determined by his or her race or sex. An individual, by virtue of his or her race or sex, bears responsibility for actions committed in the past by other members of the same race or sex. Any individual should feel discomfort, guilt, anguish, or any other form of psychological distress on account of his or her race or sex. I can't even talk.
I say that sounds like it's talking about white guilt.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, whatever. We'll
explain it once we're done reading it.
So this is basically saying that you cannot call out somebody for being a racist piece of shit because that means that
you missed the most important one, Jen. Number 9. Meritocracy or traits such as hard work ethic are racist or sexist or were created by a particular race to oppress another race.
The term divisive concepts also includes any other form of race or sex stereotypes. Okay, so What they're saying in this is if somebody is racist, you cannot call them out and say this white person is racist to black people, because then that would imply guilt. And that may bring psychological distress to this white person. That's what this is saying.
You also can't tell the truth about American history.
You can't tell the truth about American history. You can't call somebody sexist. You can't turn around and say, hey, that's a really fucked up sexist thing to say towards a woman. And then turn around and say, no, this is how men treat women and this is what we have to change, because that would imply guilt of being a man. So this is basically saying that you cannot call out your coworkers. You cannot report your coworkers to HR, because then it would be considered a divisive concept and you're trying to divide the workforce and divide races and divide genders. This is exactly what that is saying. That this turns around and says, if you go to HR and say, this person's racist, this person's sexist, this person is sexually harassing me, you can be fired.
Well, actually,
for pushing these concepts.
Well, actually, as far as I understand, these definitions apply specifically to diversity training. So if you do that your company can't do anything about it, is what this is saying. So basically, if you call somebody out for being racist, you as an employee can do that just fine. Your job can't do anything to that person for having done it. They can't go through training. They can't fix it. There's absolutely nothing.
Well, because the training is by executive order removed.
But then you can't also, so everybody has some form of bias, whether it be explicit or inexplicit. Everybody has some form of microaggressions when it comes to race, when it comes to gender, when it comes to sex. Everybody has them. And a lot of the time you're unaware of them. So you do these tiny little things. Like if I turn around and say it's a bad neighborhood with a bad school system, what race do you automatically think of? It's small things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'll let you finish and then we've
got
$5
you cannot, the company cannot call somebody out and say, hey, I understand that this is the way that you were raised, but we cannot correct you on that, and we cannot further your understanding on that. And that's a big part of, I've heard a lot of, especially with guys in the Army who grew up in these very small, very white, very conservative towns, very religious, homes, that has said that they sat through EO training. And then they were like, oh shit, I didn't even realize this was a fucked up concept. I didn't realize this was sexist. I didn't realize this was racist until it was literally put to me that I cannot do this or I'm going to get into trouble.
You're going to have that one person who spent their entire time on YouTube or poll before getting into the workforce. And as soon as they get in, they're going to look at the first black person and go, hey there, my fellow, I can't say that, but can you give me an N-word pass?
Right.
And then
you're going to get these motherfuckers.
And then suddenly you're like, well, we need to do something about that. That's not okay. But wait, but if the president says we can't, then we just have to, like, if you're in a right to work state at that point, it's just like, I guess our only option is fire him.
And my husband had a soldier who came in, little fucking town in Wisconsin, was super fucking religious. And they had to tell him that it doesn't matter. He really thought that he could boss women around no matter what rank they were. And that women were under his thumb. And when they told him that, he was like, well, why? She's a woman. And they're like, no. And they had to sit here and explain the concept that this is an equal human being and not a subordinate of you. And it actually turned around and changed this kid, where he was like, oh shit, the way that I was raised, it didn't matter what a woman made. It didn't matter what rank she was, because I was a man. I was automatically higher than her. We've had soldiers that grew up in Mississippi, that grew up in Alabama, that grew up down in South Georgia, who would say racist shit and didn't even know it was racist until they were told in EO training, hey, this is racist behavior. They just thought it was everyday life.
Well, and I mean, if you grow up racist, it is.
Right.
Like,
well, can I read off the $5 super chat really quick?
Sure.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Blood, Sweat, and Steel, $5 super chat. So what needs to happen for Jen Suris or Aleakai to run for president in the future?
I mean, I'm going back to school for the right kind of law, so maybe just time.
I mean, if I could actually get the money to go through college, and actually take some courses on philosophy, case law, basically everything that you would need to actually function as a politician, instead of stuff that
so you can take classes on how to inherit all of your money from Millionaire Dad? There are classes for that?
No, that's called finding the rich relative that's not really close to you and waiting till they die. That's what that's called.
You just convince them, hey, write me into your will. It won't matter after you die, right?
Just be really nice to them. I think that's political science.
And
I think that's covered in poli.
Wait, I think I understand it now. That's the atheist agenda. You convince the rich relative that they don't have an afterlife so that it doesn't matter that when they die, they send their money to you.
No, but you can fuck around and they'll leave that shit to like their 8 dogs.
It wouldn't matter if you're in Hydace anyway. If anything, like from the polytheist side, like from a pagan perspective, hey, if you give me your money, I'll keep making sure that you get offerings so you can come visit the sun once a month. Like I can do that for the rest of your eternal life, or as long as I'm still going on, I will teach my kid to do the same. But so Jen, we've got some more definitions here because we're like the term divisive concept also includes any other race or sex stereotyping or any other race or sex scapegoating. We then get the definitions for that. So let's go over those because the first one seems like it's okay. The second one, though, I've got some problems with it, and I'm pretty sure you do too.
But this is how propaganda works. This is now if you go back into Nazi era. In the very beginning, when they were starting to lay the plans down for their propaganda, some of this shit was like actually valid. Like Hitler touched on that it's unfair that they're being made to pay this exorbitant amount of money from World War I, and he was right in that. However, it was immediately followed with racist shit. Like this is how propaganda.
This is the formula.
Right. You start going, oh, okay, well, I kind of agree with this concept. Well, so I kind of agree with this guy, but I don't agree with this. But it seems like we get along, and yes.
$5 due super chat from Nervardia. Thank you so much, Mero. Hate comment for Suris. Growlithe is significantly cuter than he is. Truth hurts, biatches.
Ooh.
This is true.
But this is how propaganda works. So and then you're like, well, if I agree with him on this, but I don't agree with him on that, maybe I should take a look at why I don't agree with this person on this. And then that's how the wheels start to kick. So
do you want to talk a little bit about C?
So race or sex scapegoating means assigning fault, blame, or bias to a race or sex or to members of a race or sex because of their race or sex. Jesus fucking Christ. Who wrote this? Jesus. There's not a fucking comma anywhere. Fuck. It similarly encompasses any claim that, there's a comma. Consciously or unconsciously, and by virtue of his or her race or sex, members of any race are inherently racist or inherently inclined to oppress others, or that members of a sex are inherently sexist or inclined to oppress others. Holy fuck. I really think that he wrote this paragraph. I think this was one of his. So what this is saying is that you cannot train people and you cannot call out people or punish people for literally following what society teaches them. You can't correct that. There is absolutely no way to where you come across a man who has toxic masculinity traits, who feels that women are beneath him because this is what society has taught him. You can no longer call that out and you just have to deal with it.
Yep.
That's exactly
what
this is saying.
We've got the armed forces here that it says they can't do that anymore. No more bias training for the armed services. Go ahead and read that, Jen, because this is where we're getting into the meat of the legislation. Wow. Y'all are learning some shit tonight, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I know this is a long one. We still got 53 of you guys hanging out. This is the midstream reminder also while Jen recovers from her shock to drop that like and help out with the algorithm a little bit. I can't actually tab over to see how many of you all have to shame the people who haven't, but I'm going to assume that it's probably about a 50-50 ratio because that's where it usually is.
Right.
Please, even if you just want to dislike it so you never see my face and your feed again, if you're here just sitting there to troll, there's at least one person who does it every stream. If it's going to be you, it's still engagement.
So, requirements for the United States Uniformed Services. The United States Uniformed Services, including the United States Armed Forces, shall not teach, instruct, or train any member of the United States Uniformed Services, whether serving on active duty, reserve duty, attending a military service academy, or attending courses conducting by a military department pursuant to Reserve Officer Corps Training Program, to believe any of the divisive concepts set forth in Section 2A of this order. No member of the United States Uniformed Services shall face any penalty or discrimination on account of his or her refusal to support, believe, endorse, embrace, confess, act upon, or otherwise assent to these concepts. You just washed away every protection for women in the armed services completely. Because this is how this works in the military. You come into the military, right? And you get EO training. Equal opportunity training is called. And in EO training, What they do is they go through how you can act with people of other races and how you can act with people of other genders. This is how, now, if you are not told you cannot assault a woman, you cannot be racist, then when you do it, there is no form of UCMJ action to follow because you were never trained on it.
And you have to be trained.
You have to be trained on it
first.
Right. You have to be trained on it first, because then it would be no different than throwing a private on into an M203 and he blows up his fucking first sergeant. Because then he's like, well, I was never trained on this shit. So how the fuck was I supposed to know? So they can't UCMJ him for fucking up. So if they don't have the training, they can't turn around and say, I was never told to not act this way. And that takes every fucking protection for women, minorities, non-binary people, trans people in the fucking military. This is basically telling people you could be raped, you could be assaulted, you could be spat on, you could be treated differently. You cannot be presented to go to a promotion board because of your race or gender. And there is zero they can now do about it because it is no longer covered in EO training. And therefore, there is no basis for UCMJ action on this. This is, and I'm going to pull up what Gaynor said. This is also, so over here in Fort Campbell, we had an incident with the first of the 502nd, where they went through an Iraqi home, raped this 14-year-old girl, and then slaughtered her whole fucking family in front of her because they were just fucking Iraqi. Because of being under UCMJ action and then having the training of Iraqi culture, they were all able to get life in prison. Without this UCMJ training, without them being held to racial and sexist standards, these motherfuckers will no longer be able to go to trial for this.
Well, and he amended recently, part of the reason why this came up so recently is within the past week, he amended it to include not just the armed forces, not just the federal government contractors during the duration of their government contract. Government contractors, like, I've got some news clips that we could pull up if you guys are interested.
Can I just address Felipe Gabriel real quick?
Sure.
About, so I don't know so much about the Marines, but I do know the Army has NTC, which is out in California, and JRTC, which is down in Louisiana. It's a 30-day training program where they create a mock city or a mock kind of just demographic, and they hire other soldiers, they hire other people that act like villagers and act according to their culture, according to their religion, according to their just entire way of living. And it teaches them how to interact in an urban area and in a populated area with the people that you're going to be dealing with on the ground. This has been going on for years, and it's usually in like the shittiest fucking, it's like Barstow, California, and like I forgot we're in Louisiana, but it's a fucking swamp. They put these guys in the worst situations possible and the most uncomfortable situations possible to teach them how to deal with the locals in that kind of environment.
So we've got a repetition of above about contractors, but here's where I get very interested and where Cyrus's ears are going to perk up. This applies to labor unions, too, that are working with government contractors. Entire labor unions are not allowed to provide this training if they are working with a company that has a government contract.
Wait.
The labor union cannot stop people from being sexist.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is saying that if your company is under a labor union, which doesn't always happen, because labor unions are regulated by state. So what a lot of these contractors do is they open up their businesses in right to work states that don't promote.
Jen.
I know. I can't remember. I'm gonna Google it. It's Fort Polk. It's Fort Polk. And I just
part of the reason that I'm concerned with this, though, is my husband literally works a government contract with a labor union.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you guys know, but all of Boeing, except for in, I believe, North Carolina, is under the machinist union.
Mm-hmm.
So his union is now no longer allowed to provide diversity training, and neither is Boeing, because they're under a government contract. They're under multiple government contracts. Boeing builds a lot of planes and like helicopters and other shit for the government.
Real quick, the closest major city is Alexandria, but it's just next to Leesville, Louisiana. Terrence, I think you passed Leesville on your road trip to Faithless Forum.
I believe so, actually. I think that was when the storm got really bad.
So if a company or a labor union does not comply with this executive order, then their contract is terminated.
They'll terminate the contract with the military if their union reps are like, no, we need to train our people on EO shit. They will terminate the contract, and that goes for Boeing. That goes for that was really bright.
But this also now goes for the states too. Any state receiving federal money has to apply this.
I gotta fuck with my shit. And if you think about it, there is another fun
strategy is working real well right now.
Military housing is contracted to a private company. That private company is actually headquartered in Australia, who has been making strides to be more inclusive in EO training. So now you've got housing in limbo because this is now another country. So how can we regulate what happens in another country when it comes down to our contracts? How do we do that? And then what happens if that contract falls through? Then what about all these military members and their families for housing? What happens with that?
Yeah.
Gotta say, there's not, without a method of setting up any of these protections, you're basically fucked. And that's what this is aiming to do, is remove those protections. But the thing is that it's happening in response to BLM specifically. Yes. So there's a target for this. It's just...
It's not being explicitly stated, granted, but...
Yeah, it's not being explicitly stated, but it doesn't have to be. It's my issue is that there is a definite target for this. However, there's a lot of collateral damage to this, and the administration.
But he doesn't think of that. He doesn't think of the collateral damage. All he sees, he's got that tunnel vision of who's the fly in Mike Pence's hair. Like this is all he sees is the fly. He doesn't see that if he hits the fly, it kills the fly. But he doesn't see that if he hits the fly, he's gonna knock Mike Pence out. Like he doesn't see this. This is not his line of thinking.
Well, and here's the thing, like, I don't know if it's like this for everywhere, but up here, there's a joke. If Boeing sneezes, Seattle catches cold. Now, granted, we've got Amazon up here now, too, but the vast majority of businesses, like, within the, for lack of a better way to put it, blue-collar sector, and even a lot of our college graduates are aerospace engineers. Like, we graduate more than, anywhere else in the country, as far as I know, of aerospace engineers, and the UW has one of the best programs. Well, why? Because the vast majority of, contractors out here, manufacturers, warehouses, most of them supply Boeing. Are they affected by this? Boeing is a government contractor and they're supplying a government contractor. How far out does this executive order go?
Can you just highlight what Guy has said about military housing? Because I do want to clarify that.
Let's see.
Any military housing is considered U.S. territory. So here's the thing, guys. Yes, it's considered U.S. territory. However, it's being managed by a company in Australia. They cannot legislate what another country has to turn around and say is a requirement for businesses within their borders. Now, if they have to drop Lend-Lease, which is who runs the contracting for Army housing, if they have to drop Lend-Lease because their country and their location, their borders requirements is EO training for their staff, which goes against this executive order, they can then cancel the contract of them managing military housing. And then what happens?
So, Jen, here's the scary part of the legislation.
I thought we weren't there yet.
No, we're here. The Attorney General should continue to assess The extent to which workplace training that teaches the divisive concepts set forth in Section 2A of this order may contribute to a hostile work environment and give rise to potential liability under Title 7, fuck me, of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. If appropriate, the Attorney General and the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission shall issue publicly available guidance to assist employers in better promoting diversity and inclusive workplaces consistent with Title 7.
I'm not familiar with Title 7, so I feel like there's some weight to that.
I believe Title 7 is the one that determined employment law for race, gender, sex.
Well, give me a second and I will have it up
1964. Title 7 is what determined employment.
Yeah, Title 7, I pulled it up here. Text of Title 7, Section 2000E, which is what they referenced. This is all the definition-y stuff.
This has to deal with right to work. This has to deal with you cannot be discriminated against for now race, sex, gender, or sexual attraction affiliation.
Yep, that's that one.
That's Title 7. This is what we just had the SCOTUS hearing on. Was this specifically, and it deals with labor unions and as far as race and everything else. Allie, can you go back to the executive order, please?
Okay. I actually really wonder, has Trump said anything about labor unions to mine?
No.
No,
he stays away from it because he knew he would get a lot of backlash because of the labor unions in New York that provided a lot of his labor to, he has to deal with the hospitality unions. He has to deal with the electricians unions. He has to deal with the iron worker unions. He has a lot of unions to deal with in New York City when it comes down to his properties.
Hey, Jen, we've got a couple foreign viewers in the chat, so we've got a question really quick on what an executive order is. Do you want to explain that really quick?
So the executive order is a way that a president can enact law by bypassing Congress, bypassing the Supreme Court. He pretty much writes something up, signs it, and boom, it's law. That's
at least until the next president takes power and can then rescind
Once
them.
the next president takes power, he can then issue an executive order to retract an executive order.
Kind of a dumb system. It's very funny when you consider the fact that in the United States you're supposed to have a balance of power between the three branches, and yet there's a system place. There's a system in place that literally gets the president the ability to bypass all of that. Not that any of that matters in the current reality where we have I am the Senate, Mitch McConnell. But
thank you.
So
can you just scroll back up to that? I do want to cover Title 7 real quick.
Okay.
Where is it? Okay. To rise. So this is like super contradictory on itself. Because it's like, okay, we're not going to give diversity training. However, because all of these people are listed in Title 7, now the Attorney General has to assess whether or not these firings are actually covered under Title 7 and how much of it actually is racist or sexist ambiguity. This is now leaving the power into the Attorney General when it comes down to terminating jobs and when it comes down to ordering how people who are not white men are handled under the Civil Rights Act. So we are now taking SCOTUS's decision and placing it in the hands of the Attorney General on how he wants to try these.
Well, it's also the Attorney General, like this specifically says they have to assess these diversity training programs to see if they're actually doing any of these things that this order very vaguely spells out.
Right. So your rights under the Title 7 of the Civil Rights Act cannot be spoken upon within these trainings. You cannot turn around and say that we are under a literal act that means we cannot fire people, we cannot discriminate against them. You cannot say this at work. You cannot be trained on this. You cannot train new managers to say you can't fire somebody because they're gay. You can't train them on this.
Oh, but Jen, according to Section 10, you still can, though. I don't know how.
No, it just says that you cannot prevent agencies in the United States uniform. This is for the military. Excuse me, or contractors. This is not private businesses. This is military contractors and the military from
the government
right.
contractors. We covered
order
that
does not prevent agencies blah 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 from promoting racial, cultural, or ethnic diversity or inclusiveness, provided such efforts are consistent with. Okay, so what this is saying is that they're gonna do this "we don't see color" thing. That everyone is one race, the human race, and this is what they are allowed to promote. However, they cannot point out if you're treating people racist or sexist. But they can push this, we're one race, the human race, we're all people shit. This is whitewashing.
You're also still not allowed to talk about actual American history. And honestly, like, what really concerns me is that technically, to some degree, like, universities and stuff receive federal funding.
Mm-hmm.
Are universities no longer allowed to teach history?
Elementary schools.
Actually, so you do know about the 1776 Act thing that Trump was trying to push, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Trump is trying to engage. It's the patriotic education thing.
Mm-mm.
So you do know
I didn't know
about
that's
it.
what it was called. Okay.
The official word is the 1776.
Okay, I didn't know
Act.
the official wording on it. Thank you.
So when you bring up, are universities actually allowed to teach history? Well, currently, public schools, if Trump gets his way, will not be allowed to. They will have to teach patriotic history. His fucking words. Now, patriotic history, not history.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is how you completely take away a minority community. So public schools in this country receive federal funding if they are a Title I school district. Title I school districts are school districts or schools that are in high poverty rate areas. Now, we're not going to sit here and make any fucking assumptions. What is a high poverty rate area? Usually people of color. So if they turn around and teach Black children that slavery was wrong, they can actually pull their Title I funding, their government funding from the school.
Which is beautiful, wouldn't you say? Just
that, and this is how you start to demonize anybody who isn't white. This is the same kind of shit that Germany did. This is the same kind of shit that Russia did. Russia did this with Poland right before World War I. Russia came in and invaded Lithuania and invaded Poland. And at first it started with Russians are better and our history is better and this is why we should teach it. And then they started to ban language. And then they started to ban schools. And they didn't turn around and say the school is banned, we're going to shut the school down. They just stopped funding them. And
there's already plenty of people in the United States, especially here in the South, that are, if you hear something about like a federal mandate that says that you must speak English, which is not something America hasn't done before.
No, we don't have an official language.
If they hear that, you're gonna get two sides of people. You get the one who's been saying for years, "Speak American." You've got that fucker, and then you've got the sly shit. You've got the Nick Fuentes level sly bullshit, where the person's gonna go, "What are you going to tell me that you don't think that a country should have an official language? Are you going to tell
shouldn't we all American, be one nation and be able to express each other and understand each other?"
It's like, are you saying that we should not be able to that everybody should not speak the official language of America if you're going to live here? If you're going to live here, you need to speak the language. What's wrong with that? They're gonna do that knowing that there's, like I said, there's two types of people. There's a type of person that's going to do the first one because they're just a bigot and may not even know any better. And then
the majority of people are going to do that sly shit.
They're going to do that sly shit, and they're going to do it not even like people aren't going to realize what they're doing when somebody's doing that.
Well,
they're trying to creep you close to a fucking ethno state. They're trying to get to homogeneity.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and as somebody who speaks 6 languages, I can tell you there are literally ideas that I cannot convey to you guys in English that I have had to stammer my way through. Both of you have had this experience with me at least once, where I get stuck in Haida or Greek or another language and have to stammer my way through attempting to understand a concept that has a single word in one of the languages that I speak.
But mind you, I mean, when I grew up, we had a huge influx of Afghani refugees that came in. We had a huge influx of Armenian, Serbian, kind of Croatian refugees that came in. We also had a huge influx of Hispanic people that came in because of the banana wars and because of the coups that the United States was setting up in Central and South America. A lot of these kids depended on the ESL programs that the government funded, that the state and federal level funded through these schools. You can kiss those goodbye.
Well, and besides, what I was trying to say is that those sorts of mandates are cultural erasure, because there are concepts that do not exist in American culture, that do exist in Haida culture, that do exist in Greek culture, that do exist in other cultures. There are no words for that in this this other language.
But that would no longer be considered patriotic education.
You would no longer, you would lose entire cultural concepts. You would lose parts of yourself. And I can tell you from firsthand experience that when you start to lose a language, you lose parts of yourself with it.
Mm-hmm.
There are ways you can no longer think if you don't have the concept.
But this was what was pushed during the German and Polish immigration wave, was that you had to Americanize, you had to adapt to the American culture, or you didn't deserve to be here. And then there was judgment, and then it started falling onto the Hispanic community that, well, they're not even making an attempt to be American. Like, bitch, they had the land first. Shut the fuck up. If anything, you should be making the attempt to be fucking Hispanic. Shut your fucking mouth. But they're not attempting to be American enough. They're not trying to Americanize enough, so they don't respect our country.
So y'all gonna learn like the Native American languages of the tribes that used to live where you currently are? Because like that's about as American as you can get, right? We were here first.
Like this is what kills me about like the border wall. And then they talk about, especially with Texas and New Mexico, they're not even trying to assimilate. It's like, bitch, you took their fucking land. Now you're mad that they want to come home? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? But you're going to sit there and be like, white is right? The fuck is this shit? And then, bitch, when you go to a town like El Paso and they're like, well, they can't even speak fucking English. What? The fuck? What? And then they try to get businesses shut down in a fucking military town because they don't speak English.
Mm-hmm.
On the fucking Mexican border. I can't. But not teaching people the language, you can also sit here and abuse workers with that. Like Service and I live in the South. There are a lot of quote unquote illegal workers that work the farms here, that work the tobacco farms, that work they just work shit here. But because they can't speak English and they're shamed for that, that stops them from reporting wages fraud, abuse at work. That completely stops them from doing that. So that's another fucking way to suppress people.
Well, and let's face it, like during times where we have shut down borders or made it nearly impossible for people to get across, shit just rots in the fields. Americans don't want those jobs.
Yeah, what happened? They were like, yo, my fields are rotting because all these fucking jobs that were taken from people, no white people are taken. So what is it then? And we had this a lot in New York when it came down to the influx of Indian immigration, where they were like, they're coming in and taking up all these high paying jobs. And dudes like, yes, I'm sitting here in university being a doctor, a fucking lawyer, a fucking sanitation worker that your ass is currently trying to work. Shut the fuck up. Like shutting the whole fuck up. This was actually a big thing with the Indian influx of immigration into New York at that time.
Can I
yeah, but here's the...
Sure.
I was going to say, can I just comment on the strange, the cognitive dissonance that's required to maintain the "they're taking our jobs" position? Because if 9 times out of 10, right, the person who engages in that rhetoric will also argue for a true meritocracy, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you are in a true meritocracy, it should not matter where one comes from. If they have the merit for the position, they deserve the position. They didn't take a job from you.
Right.
They deserved the job more. And if you don't believe they got it because they deserved it, is it because they took it, or should you be mad at the business instead of the immigrant?
Mm-hmm.
Or actually, should you be more, mad about the fact that, like, a lot of these folks that do end up having to work under the table work for below minimum wage and the like. At that point, you really have to be angry at the fucking business.
Oh, I was just going to, like, slowly move one of those dipshits into an anti-capitalist position for fun.
Oh,
That's what I was going to do.
I love doing that.
Just go, hey, if you want to be mad at the business. Okay, now, how mad should you be at the business versus how mad should you be at the system that created that business?
Right. Now, and this is the thing where when you come on these H-1 visas, it's the company that is specifically looking, and in order to get an H-1 visa, they have to turn around and say that we have looked at all local prospects and nobody here, we cannot find anyone in the country to hire. So we are now applying for H-1 visas to hire people from outside of the country. So what does that say?
There wasn't anybody who was
right. So who the fuck is taking a job that you're not fucking qualified for? That they literally have to go out of the country to fucking fill? Like who's taking this job from you? Clearly you had no fucking shot at it. So what is it? But
well, and not only that though, like the Indian influx and the Asian influx, because a lot of folks are angry about, Asian workers coming in, are a direct result of economic and immigration policies that only favor highly educated immigrants. So you're mad at the immigrants that are coming in, taking the low-level jobs that you didn't want to work. You're mad at the immigrants coming in that worked their asses off and are taking the high-paying jobs that you didn't want to work for. It seems to me like you're just mad at the immigrants. Like, are you just mad that they're immigrants?
At that point, you just back them into that corner,
right? But this is how the Nazi Party had built up too. It was first, we were in so much debt because of World War I, and then they turned around. Who is that crying? Somebody's talking. And then they turned around and said, well, now this happened in New York with the Jewish community. So where the Jewish community was ostracized, they wouldn't hire them. So they formed in their own community, they educated themselves, and the majority of them were dentists. They educated themselves, they created their own wealth, and they became very insular because of that, because of the discrimination that was happening. This was not happening in Germany. So they were becoming insular, they were educating themselves, they were obtaining their own wealth, and then Hitler turned around and said that they're taking our jobs. They don't let anybody in. They're the ones that are still being doctors, that are still being lawyers. They're the ones that are able to survive, and we're sitting on breadlines. This is how this shit starts. This is exactly how this shit starts. And when you called out and said, hey, that's fucking racist, it's not Jews becoming insular on themselves, it's the policies in place that are making it harder for them, then suddenly it was illegal to talk about that, which is exactly what the fuck this executive order is. That's exactly what this is. This is the step of you now cannot call it out so that the people who we feel need to be in power can run free.
So we're getting pretty close to the wrap up and chill portion of the show. Cyrus, do you have any closing thoughts that you want to add as well?
My closing thoughts is it's funny to me that it took us an hour and a half to get through a few pages or a few paragraphs of fluff because there's just so much bullshit packed in it.
I mean, that's the whole short, quippy, and wrong thing, isn't it? Except this is like long-winded and still wrong.
Like everything in Trump's life. Fuck.
Like the big thing is that it's scary, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's scary to look at legislation like this, understand where it can potentially lead, understand where it potentially is coming from, and just kind of sit back and go, oh shit, it's happening here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a scary thought. The other thing that occurs to me more than anything is how many Americans, and granted this is exactly how it happened in Nazi Germany, so it's not like I should be really surprised, but how many Americans are sitting here going, it's the true patriots who believe this one.
Mm-hmm.
It's the true patriots who look at Donald Trump and go, he's fine. And the other thing that's really agitating, this is a separate issue, but it is within the scope of what we're talking about. It's very weird to me how many people are listening to foreign YouTubers give fascist opinions and rhetoric towards the
Mhm.
United States. I could name a few of them, but I don't think I need to. I think most people understand if I say fucking weird dude who looks like he'd be even displaced at a Magic the Gathering convention, but yet somehow squeals on American politics from Sweden. Everybody knows who I'm talking about.
Mhm. Everyone went.
So it's very weird to me that I live in America right now that is dealing with a lot of this shit, and people are accepting the opinions of other people, not opinions on how to make America legitimately better, but opinions on how to make America functionally fascistic. And that's weird to me. It's scary, but it's also just strange to have your like ethnocentric isolationist Americans who are agreeing with that rhetoric because it's convenient.
Yeah, this is a scary fucking time, folks. Like,
And honestly,
y'all gotta fucking vote. Like, vote in a way that we cannot bring this shit to Congress and have another Bush Gore. Vote in a way that the popular vote aligns with the electoral. Y'all gotta fucking vote. Y'all have to vote because Hitler didn't start gassing people his first couple of years. No, he built his platform and
Trump
then
did.
started doing
We already caged children.
Yeah, I was about to say, Trump started, sterilizing people in his first couple of years. Does that count?
Yeah, like, this motherfucker is Hitler on meth. Like, he's meth
Maybe
bunnying.
literally.
Possibly, but he's meth bunnying his project.
Allegedly.
They tested his DNA. It's not DNA. It's USA.
Oh, that's right.
So, kind of my concluding thought on this is part of the reason I wanted to talk about this is, number one, I was very surprised that neither of you had heard all that much about it to begin with, but I shouldn't have been, because number two, stuff like this is actually very deliberately timed to be covered up by things like the presidential debate debacle, the VP debate debacle. Lots of really big stories have been smothered by drama because drama gets clicks, and news organizations, as much as we trust reporters, the reporters at news organizations generally are doing their best. We can go ahead and, talk about yellow news all day, but at the majority of, especially newspapers, those motherfuckers are working their ass off to break this news, but they're also privately traded companies that have to make their money on advertising dollars. And how does that happen? Well, Cirrus, Jen, you and I have both talked about, all of us have talked about how we sometimes have to make videos that we're less interested in, that we know we're going to get people engaged from our audience, because that's the only way that you can kind of keep growing and keep getting attention. So even if it's not something you're super passionate about, you have to. And drama of any kind, anywhere, gets clicks. Yep. It gets viewers, it gets subscriptions, it gets purchases.
My next one's going to get quite a few. So.
Yeah. So, stories like this, which absolutely might impact many of you, might have jobs or have parents or partners who have jobs that are in this industry that are going to be impacted by this. Especially anybody who's POC in my audience who's from the United States. Y'all should freaking know about this in case you decide to take a job with a country with a company that currently has a government contract. Because it says nothing about just the force that's working on the government contract. It's the whole fucking company. So you might end up working for a company that is not allowed to do anything if you get harassed. And you need to know that. And that's why I wanted to talk about it tonight. So I hope that you guys enjoyed that. I hope that it was useful. Jen, do you have anything interesting coming up you want to talk about?
Let's ask Cirrus first.
All right, Cirrus, you got any videos you want to announce or shows that you want to talk about or anything big coming up?
So tomorrow, depending on scheduling, ideally we should be able to have a hammered out. Me and Ocean are going to try to talk about what the United States just recently changed in its immigration policy. Because we we now do not allow anybody who was ever affiliated with not the Communist Party, but a communist party.
Yeah.
And not just a communist party, any totalitarian party. But not just a totalitarian party. A totalitarian party in the estimation of the United States government, which means
any Middle East country, this is any West Asian country, this is any most East Asian countries. This could be said for some European countries.
But it's not about countries. It's about political parties.
Yes.
Which means that technically they are infringing on people's freedom of speech, because now somebody who is in America right now on a visa, who is vying for citizenship, can be denied citizenship because they are part of a labor union that, by the nature of labor unions, they're generally more lefty spaces. Just by the nature of that union, they will not be able to, they'll have to take a choice. Do I work at the job that I'm on visa to work for? Or does it technically mean I'm affiliated with a party and now I can't immigrate? Oh, that's awkward. So also, that's the thing.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So that's the thing we're going to try to do.
I was going to say also on top of that, now that Antifa, quote unquote, Antifa has been labeled a terrorist organization, if any person who's here on a work visa, any kind of thing like that, they go through their social media, they see that they have Antifa views, they can now be booted because it's considered against our government. They can consider that totalitarian. They can consider that extreme. They can consider it communist views. And therefore can boot them out of our country for showing anti-fascist views on social media.
So that is a thing. The next thing that we're going to be attempting to do, or that I'm going to be attempting to do, is Wednesday. I am going to be doing a video on Sean Foyt, who is currently a super spreader. He just hosted.
He was just here.
Yeah, he just hosted a event with 10,000 people, all closely packed together without masks. So even though, and his excuse is, oh, well, we were outside. Being outside is only half of the thing. Being outside, the reason being outside lowers the likelihood that you'll spread a disease is because there's fewer surfaces for you to come in contact with. But if you are butt up against somebody, you are going to spread shit to them. And if you are butt up against somebody without a mask, you are going to spread shit to them.
I want to say that the turnout was 9,000 to 10,000 people here that he put together.
Yeah. And I wonder how many will end up dead.
And that's just like an hour or so away from me. So there was people. This is why I don't leave my fucking house now. Like this is why.
I have been to conventions, many of them, and I have learned something about conventions. You generally come from them very sick.
Every time, right?
Yeah, it's called Confrud.
Every fucking time. I always get some shit coming home from a conference. Always.
All right, Jen, you got anything exciting coming up? You want to talk about?
Thursday, I will be releasing a video called White Non-Believer Fragility.
Jen's like, I'm gonna get away from the atheist community. Does a video about.
I expressed today that, and Cyrus had a little fun with me on this, that the only Christopher we acknowledge in my house is Christopher Wallace on Columbus Day. And I had to edit to add that the reason why is because I would rather celebrate a Christopher that actually is part of a community of people of color and actually has done things for the POC community. And all I fucking got was Christopher Hitchens, Cyrus.
I was the first one to comment on that.
You were the first one. I was like, you motherfucker. But like these white ass men were viciously defending, well, it's like that in your house, but in my house, it's Christopher Hitchens. And it's like, no, every fucking time that we talk about POCs in the atheist community, y'all got to bring these white ass motherfuckers in here and then viciously defend this shit. So there's this, and then they get all fucking upset. Like, you're just looking to fight. No, I'm looking to turn around and tell you to stop bringing white people into spaces that are recognizing POCs. So that's going to be on that. And then Friday, I'm having a good friend of mine, Buddy Mathis on, who does his own like music political website, to come on and talk about why, as a Black man, he did not want to adopt the term atheist because of the behavior of white atheists, specifically white atheist men.
Oh, Neil?
No.
That's a thing that Neil deGrasse Tyson has said too.
Mm-hmm. So we're actually going to have somebody come on and talk about that after I sit here and call out every white racist man in fucking atheism.
Okay, so we're starting with Silverman, right?
I will get to the Silverman video if Trump and people stop being Trump and people. I will get to the Silverman
because
video.
there's Silverman, there's the fucking kangaroo.
Mm-hmm. I will get to the breakdown of the Silverman video eventually. I will get to that one.
Well, on my side, I'm actually going to be exploring what it means to be a Greek hero and how they were honored in cult in ancient Greece. It's the second part of my Idol October series where I'm going into spooky topics like cult of the dead and cult of ancestor worship, magic, cursed tablets, all kinds of fun stuff. So I'm going to be talking at length about what it means to be a hero in epic, how difficult it actually is to define them from a scholarly perspective, what the praxis looked like as far as what we know about it, and how much bigger the topic actually was than I thought it was, because video was 17 minutes. It was originally 22, and I cut it down. And I barely scratched the surface. I've got books upon books on this stuff. So if y'all actually like the topic of heroes and want to go more in depth for various like lesser known Greek heroes and stuff like that, I'm going to invite everybody in the comments to let me know if they're interested in that stuff. But that's what I'm doing on Thursday. And on Monday, if I recall correctly, we've got Evans Murphy coming on.
Mm-hmm. My cat just stepped on the keyboard and made my entire screen gray, and I don't know how to fix
that's what happens to me when I die in League.
I don't know how to fix this.
So
yes, we have Evans Murphy going on Monday.
Yep, and he wants to talk about Jen will come back at some point. He wants to talk about philosophically averse atheists and scientism, and why that is a problem, and about the issues that anti-theists have a tendency to cause on Twitter and in other places. Welcome back, Jen.
Hi, this asshole right here. It's this asshole.
Hey, that's the face that's currently facing you. At least you've got that much.
That's this asshole. This is the only pussy I'm getting lately too, so yeah.
All right, so now that is so did you guys hear that kissing sound? Because we just kissed any hope of monetization goodbye.
Yeah. I still can't figure out how to stop my screen from being gray right now.
Should I Google that for you?
I can Google it later. Why do you do this? Why? You're supposed to love me. I feed you.
That I think I've said those exact words, but that's a thing that I've said in different contexts before.
This dick bag. Right, Apple?
So, I guess we are wrapping up. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. 56 people. Most of y'all stuck through the entire thing. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Thank you again, sirs, for being awesome and for coming on at such short notice. I know you've been super busy lately, and like I asked you on frickin' Saturday, and normally I ask you like a month ahead of time to make sure you even have time. So thank you again for coming on and chatting with us.
All it means is that I've got to get a nap in before I do my video itself. So I can get energy.
You're like so much more.
This motherfucker doesn't know what like sleep is or free time or like actual space. Like if he's gaming, he's probably streaming it. Like fuck, man.
I have been gaming this whole time.
Oh my god! Like how do you do that?
Cirrus.
I have two monitors, and I did a 7. One, it helps that I've done several like 8 and 10 hour streams. So like I'm kind of used to being able to speak at a little bit of length while doing something. And a first test run of doing an entire politics stream while also just gaming the entire time was done on Friday, and I'm still in that mindset.
I'm sorry that I missed that one. I am sorry that
I was surprised. Like I was like, I'm just going to talk about all this shit, and I'll play World of Warcraft in the background so that I don't like lose track of shit. And then I finally just went, wait, why don't I just put it on the screen and see if I lose viewers? And for the first time in forever, I didn't.
So whoops, chat moved, so I clicked the wrong one. Guys, I don't know. Can you eat it? Anyway,
What?
Okay, Gaius asks, deflect is the sleep thing. And I said, I don't know. Can you eat it?
What? I don't know.
Okay, so that is a running joke from the Discord server. For those of you who have not checked it out, link is in the description below to Jen and my shared Discord server, which is named after the show. It is an allyship space, so atheists and pagans and folks that are open to atheist and pagan views are all welcome there. You will be locked in the Hecate's Gatehouse for a little while when you first arrive. We screen people to make sure that our community is going to stay safe because we've had some jackasses come in and harass people and use slurs and all kinds of messy stuff.
It's been interesting.
It's better that the majority of our community doesn't have to deal with that if they don't want to. Like, the gatehouse is a risky place. People interact there all the time. But as long as you are active and you talk with people a little bit and let us get to know you, put a little profile thingy in the introduction, you probably should get, you should probably get in fairly easily. As long as you're decent. Assholes, we screen out pretty quickly. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. And remember, we're stronger together.